I'm Aaron Fawn, and I'm in the middle of Kansas on a trip for life.
I believe our future depends powerfully on how well we understand this cosmos, in which we float like a mote of dust in the morning sky.
Big things are coming at the Land Institute. They are moving on to stage 2 of their grand project, in which they finally get busy breeding these new agricultural plants. In order to confront these new challenges, the Land is building a new facility on site to handle their expanded needs. They have a newly renovated greenhouse which features a state-of-the-art ebb and flow system to minimize their water usage. Ebb and flow systems use capillary mats to move water around underneath the plants, which allows for the plants to never be exposed to falling water. This might seem unnatural, but there are huge pathological benefits to such a system. Most pathogenic bacteria and fungi that attack plants spread by splashing water and require high moisture in the air. Using ebbing flow systems ensures that the land can focus upon breeding their plants without having to worry so much about plant disease. Also, this system greatly reduces fertilizer runoff, which is a growing source of water pollution. Additionally, they have a brand new lab, so new that the concrete wasn't even dry when I visited. It contains a state-of-the-art drying room to more thoroughly and reliably dry their seeds in order to help them preserve them, and a vast seed vault in the basement that I couldn't film due to the aforementioned fresh concrete. This is a vast improvement over their current paper bag-based seed storage system, as their existing seed storage is completely full. New office space should encourage collaboration amongst the staff scientists, and the new laboratory space is much more modern, with ample natural lighting and excellent ventilation to make those long hours on the bench go faster. Also, the new vastly more spacious seed cleaning room is a great improvement. Well, what is seed cleaning? Let's talk to the scientists laboring in the old seed cleaning room to find out. So what are you guys doing here?
Well, we're actually cleaning the seed that we harvested in the field a couple weeks ago from a plant breeding project with intermediate wheatgrass. So we're blowing the chaff out of the seed over here, and we're removing the hulls from the seed, and then we're putting them back in the buckets. We're also taking a little bit of data on the seed as we go along. It's just one step along the way. In the field, we took a whole bunch of data. Actually had laptops out in the field. We're taking data as we harvested the plants, threshed them in the field. So this isn't actually threshing. You can see here the seed has already been threshed. It's been taken off the plant. So this is the seed here, and you can see some of these seeds are out of the hulls, and some of them are in the hulls. This seed right here is still in the hull, and these are out. So this particular crop, intermediate wheatgrass, has an issue. It's a wild plant, and as a wild plant, these hulls help the seed to bury it in the soil. And so there's little barbs in there, and it works the seed into the soil. But as we domesticate crops, generally we like them to be able to come out easily out of those hulls. And so one of the things that we're breeding for is the ability to just run it through a combine and have the seed come right out of those hulls. And so this particular sample, you can see this comes from a plant that has a good ability to do that already. To get accurate yields, we actually have to mechanically run it through this blue machine here, which pulls off the rest of the holes off ones that it doesn't happen real easily. So that's kind of what we're up to here today. We've got 5,000 samples to get through, so it's going to take us a couple of weeks, I think. The next step in the process is to weigh individual seeds for seed size, and then also to move on to the yield from each plant. So this is just kind of one step in the plant breeding.
The mission of the Land Institute is a unique one, and perhaps it requires viewing things from a different perspective than most scientific ventures. But like most science, the development of new techniques is a big part of this project. For instance, the Land Institute has developed a better method for visualizing roots. Traditionally, plants would be grown between panes of glass to be able to better see the root systems. However, this system has the major disadvantage of being essentially two-dimensional, which is highly unnatural. However, simply digging up plants to see their roots in 3 dimensions is impossible to do without significantly damaging the roots. The land has overcome this problem by developing a system of tubes holding loose growth medium, which float such that they can be lifted out and opened. The loose medium falls away, and what is left is the roots in their original form without damage. It's pretty neat. Well, I've made very clear what the mission of the Land Institute is and how they are working to accomplish it. But how would the fulfillment of this mission affect us all? And what hurdles do they expect to have to overcome outside of the lab and in the field? Dr. Cox has answers to these questions.
We are seeing many ill effects from our current agricultural model, such as dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico and off the east coast of the United States, due to nitrogen and phosphorus runoff. In addition, we have things like farmer suicides throughout the third world and a concentration of wealth around the middlemen of the food industry. What would perennial cropping do to help solve some of these problems?
Well, the reason that we end up having a lot of these problems with annual crops goes back to the very fact that they're annual, that they have to rebuild a root system every year, and because of that, and because we have to prepare a soil bed, we have to nurse them with nutrients that they're not able to handle efficiently on their own. We have to protect them with pesticides and so forth. So annual crops inevitably become very input dependent. When we go to, say, organic agriculture to try to solve the problem of dangerous chemicals, we end up having to use more fossil fuel for tillage and haul in manure that may be from places that aren't very desirable. And so on the other hand, if we try to prevent soil erosion, which is a serious problem with annual crops, we end up with, say, no-till agriculture, which does help conserve soil anyway, but it's very chemical intensive.
And what sort of transformative effects do you think that perennial crops would produce in our society?
Well, perennial crops would, like their wild perennial counterparts, would be very precise micromanagers of nutrients and water below the soil surface. Much of the action that happens in agriculture or in a natural ecosystem we don't see. It's all happening below ground, and that's where perennial plants are able to snap up every molecule of nitrogen, every molecule of water, and manage those resources very well. Whereas, say for a typical cornfield, we have to apply twice as much synthetic nitrogen to that field as the plants will eventually take up because they're not as efficient. And also, in addition to their efficiency, the other big advantage of perennials is the longer growing season, the fact that they get a very quick and early head start because they're growing from fleshy tissues beneath the ground and not just a tiny seed. And they can regrow after harvest, and so both at the beginning and end of the season, they're gathering more solar energy, which they're able to convert to plant material. All of those advantages then are going to, in this transformative sense, are going to free people who are growing these crops from being sort of middle people in the input-output system, having to purchase large amounts of inputs and being like the typical farm in America now that has an enormous gross income but a very tiny net income because, as we like to say, they're essentially laundering they're essentially laundering federal subsidy money to the fertilizer, equipment, and pesticide dealers.
We're in a world where the major agribusiness concerns don't even want farmers to be able to save seed, let alone plant it and forget it for years on end. What sort of obstacles do you see in your path beyond the technical hurdles in the political and business sphere once you actually are successful in achieving perennial crops?
Well, maybe that's one benefit of the very long-term nature of this research, is that by the time I'm pretty sure that by the time we're dealing with those problems, that we have finished products that can be used out in the field, that we're going to be living in a very different world. We're going to be facing severe we're going to be facing severe resource limitations. I don't foresee our economy ever coming back to the point that it's at now. I hope we're going to have a much more far-sighted economic system in which we're not simply using agriculture as an excuse to enrich some few corporations, but that the benefits of growing food are going to go to the person growing it, the people eating it, and the communities around that area where it's being grown. So we can't do this alone simply by moving pollen from one plant to another. Society is also going to have to evolve at the same time, because neither this system or any other system is going to work very well if we continue on the path we're on.
The land is a great example of an institution with a rare quality, a long-term vision. Rather than constraining their vision to the next quarter or the next grant, as so many in our society have allowed themselves to do, the land has boldly undertaken a project that has taken decades thus far and will continue for decades to come. But the reward for such vision is vast, as success in this project will ensure that their work will live on for thousands of years and positively affect the lives of all of our descendants. We can only hope that other scientists will take up the mantle of long-term vision science in order to help us all, because this sort of project is needed in order to ensure a better future. You should wish them luck, because in so doing, you will be blessing yourselves as well.
The sky calls to us. If we do not destroy ourselves, we will one day venture to the stars.